So today we've had two very interesting things raised. First things first, the whole Stellantis debacle that's going on at the moment. And Stellantis, if you don't know, is one of, at least I think it's the fourth biggest car manufacturer. I think it's like Vauxhall, Renault. They've got a couple of other things that they are sort of very, very invested in. They've got a big car, electric van manufacturing site, or at least that's their aim. As something else they've announced, they want to go 100% electric. That's the direction they want to go in. And they've said very clearly that these post-Brexit agreements aren't working. Now, why are they not working? Well, first of all, this is a bit twofold, but it does feed into Brexit. The first thing, as Jeremy Hunt himself addressed when he was asked this question earlier today at the British Chamber of Commerce conference, he said that this is a supply issue. We're not the only ones making electric cars, so obviously there is going to be a big demand for these parts and the supply to build these parts, specifically batteries, to fulfill this future sort of business of building these electric cars. We all know we are going in the direction of electric cars. All the big manufacturers have said this is the direction they are going. Now, if you want to do that, of course, you have to have the industry to back that up. And one of those big things, if you're going to be building electric cars, is, of course, the batteries. And you may remember we were set to build this gigantic gigafactory that was going to be the base of this new British electric car manufacturing plants. This is what it was going to be. And of course, if you remember, all that fell through. And I think it was the Australian company, I think, that took it over. Rather than build this, or at least continue to build this gigantic gigafactory, instead scaled back, I believe, the ambition. So it's still a battery factory, but it is nowhere near the amount of production needed by that of, well, at least Stellantis and many of the other UK car manufacturing companies. Now, the other problem where this comes in is, of course, the traditional Brexit problem. You may always remember we used to talk about quite heavily the idea of just-in-time delivery systems. So instead of a company basically keeping a warehouse of all these parts, which cost them a lot of money just to maintain that stock of parts, instead you could go, right, today, or at least this week, we are going to build X amount of BMWs, meaning that we need this amount of parts this week delivered to this factory so that they can be built. So you don't have to have massive warehouses. Instead, you can devote that warehouse space to another production line or building something else. So this was what just-in-time delivering systems were all about. And you could, there used to be a map. I don't know if it exists anymore. I think if you type in, I think just-in-time delivery systems map, I think you can still see it. It shows you, I think, a factory in Germany and where all these parts come from across not only just Germany, but the rest of Europe to build one car. And in one day, and like when they are ordered, it's like the week of like how these parts are built. And there's another fantastic video. I think it was by the BBC, and that shows you an engine being built, how an engine would cross multiple borders before the engine itself gets fully built and constructed and then put in a car. And you can see it going, like, it starts in the UK, then it goes to Italy, then it goes to Germany, then to somewhere in like Austria, then back to the UK, then to France, and then back to the UK again, and then he's put in a car. So that's how these just-in-time delivery systems are valuable to not only just the car industry, but many, many other companies that were invested in this type of delivery system. And you can only really do that if you have these borders where you can sort of travel across very freely. But because of Brexit, up go the barriers. Now, Stellantis's big concern is that, look, with these current Brexit deal, we risk not fulfilling the rules and requirements required for building electric cars, mainly that most of the components have to come from within Europe. If not, you face a 10% tariff. Now, that essentially means that any electric car production, be it parts or anything like that coming from the UK, becomes unproductive. They have spelt it out very, very clearly. We employ 5,000 people currently in the UK. If this ends up, or if you as a government do not end up helping us or sorting this out, our path is very clear that we will reduce the jobs here in the UK and move them to the EU. And that is because of what you have done with Brexit. That is very, very clearly put across by Stellantis. Now, the other thing, or the other question that I want to put forward that was, again, put forward to Jeremy Hunt by, let me try and find it. Here we here we are. So the other, of course, Brexit question was, of course, the idea of what Brexit has done for many of the businesses. And of course, we've talked about multiple times what these businesses have gone through. Look at Clooney Lace. There's the seed company in Doncaster that we talked about. A ton of different companies and businesses that have been hit by Brexit, and they've lost, from what we have seen, on average between 30 to 40% of their business. That is a lot of business to lose. And the idea that you can just go and trade around with the rest of the world, that's not how international trade works. It's very, very hard to just turn up in Japan and just go, hey, I'm from the UK, I've got all these fantastic products, who's going to buy them? That's not how international trade works. It's not that easy, but it seems to be what most of these Brexiteers and people who are like still on this, this global opportunity, this global Britain bandwagon seem to want to put forward. So he was asked this question from the moderator about the challenges that Brexit has posed for any businesses from the British Chamber of Commerce conference, and he completely sidestepped the question. His response was that any change in your trading relations with your biggest trading partner represents challenges. Now that's fantastic because he has admitted something there. Very few Brexiteers deny, or at least will admit, that Europe is our biggest trading partner. And we have just put up massive trade barriers because of Brexit, because of the deal that was done by Boris Johnson, and that is still being continued by Rishi Sunak. So there is now very clear damage, very clear evidence that this whole Brexit deal that was signed is not working as intended, that is costing the economy. So how long can, once again, we say this, how long can you continue to cover up the elephant? Keir Starmer came out again this morning and said, yeah, it's very clear this whole Brexit deal needs to be renegotiated and made better and be improved. But you only do that by agreeing with the EU what will align on standards, will align on this. And of course, Brexiteers don't want to do that because, well, it makes the idea that we left the EU a good idea, or that the EU were punishing us, not work out that well. So we'll see what happens. But once again, the idea that Brexit is working is very, very clear, and businesses are finally, thankfully, starting to say up and say, hey, this whole Brexit deal, can we sort this out, please? Because it's not working out for us, and it's costing us, it's certainly costing us jobs, opportunities to employ people, and all kinds of stuff that they are just not doing. So we'll see how much longer this continues, but to be honest, it's not looking good for the Brexiteers. And for the fact that Nigel Farage came out and said that Brexit isn't working, well, we'll see. We'll see how long they can continue with this charade. But to be honest, the fact that Farage has come out and said Brexit isn't working, the game is finally up, I think. And I think even when you've got Farage saying that, I think he knows. And we've always said how Farage is like very much, finger on the pulse of how Brexit is perceived to be going. So we'll see. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.